Okay. So now what I want to do is, I want you to give feedback on my lecture so far. What is the first step? I start off with my own, what I feel is my positive points. Okay. So like, I would think that the slides were relatively okay. I tried to stick to the time given. So that was some of the things which I felt was good. Now you need to tell me my positive points. You can feel free. You can give a lot of positive points. Thank you. Very active. Yes. Pardon? Encourages participation. Okay. Yes. Interaction. Okay. Yeah. Okay. Okay. So you can talk about the person also, but in a nice way. That's the point. Okay. Possible, but then you need to be really good at giving that feedback, because if you go a bit wrong, it looks threatening. But you're right. So if you word it properly, it works. Okay. Yes. I didn't get you. Expressions are very important. True. True. Body language, facial expression would be really important. Okay, so my positive I said, my positive you said. The third is my improvement points. One problem I always have is I tend to go a bit fast sometimes, and it's not very clear to a lot of people. So that's one thing which I need to really improve on. Now your turn. Now, yes, sir. Thank you. Thank you so much. So you feel that the slides could be numbered, organized a bit better?
Exactly. Especially when you go like usually as a daily workshop, you follow up the page by page.
Understood, yeah.
Sometimes they give you looking for that slide.
Right.
So it's excellent formative slides.
Organization could have been better.
We'll use
The eye perspective, yeah. So that was what I was looking for. Thank you, thank you. So that was a very good example of good feedback. You always say, in my opinion. Okay, so you're not saying that this is right, this is wrong. You're just saying that this is my opinion. You can take it, you can leave it. Okay. So that was one good point. Anything else? Yes.
In my opinion, it's prepared professionally.
Thank you.
And it's perfect and everything is good. The most important thing that you have less or few words, but there is a lot of figures, and this is the best in presentation.
Yep, but I want negative points.
Negative points. Good feedback. You said good feedback.
Okay, right. Yes, sir.
I think as far as the improvement point is, because from the College of Medicine, most of the examples are focusing.
True.
We can include some of the examples
from the other colleges, other specialties. Right. Thank you. So I think that was a valid point, I think, which Doctor also raised. So
lack of flowers in the presentation.
Lack of flowers in the presentation. We'll do that also next time, inshallah.
I think which is very important.
Yep.
You have to keep adhering to the time.
Right.
But you didn't give us about the layout of the program.
Right.
At what time we start, the break will be from this time to
Right.
that time.
Right.
So this will be quite good for people.
Right. So at the beginning I could have told that we start at this time, the break is at this time. Okay. The next break is in 5 minutes. Inshallah. 2 minutes. Okay. Yes, sir.
You're doing excellent. Just a suggestion that you can tell. My voice is that maybe next time.
In your opinion.
In my opinion, my suggestion.
Right.
Maybe next time you can include a video
Right.
where you can show that a real time, that I mean, like 4 or 5
Understood, yeah.
how the book was formed and how
Right.
like that.
Right.
It will be more enjoyable.
Thank you so much. Actually, we actually do that, and what we are trying to do today is that, when we have time in the end, we will actually have a hands-on session practicing PBL. So everybody will be doing that, inshallah, and you yourself will be acting as the facilitators. Okay. So we'll, inshallah, we'll do that, but thank you so much for the feedback. So the last step is that I sum up the whole thing. So I say that, some of the things which I really thank the feedback. I did some things okay, like the slides I made okay, but some things I need to improve, go back, like the organization, the numbering I need to improve. I need to make sure that the layout was given in the beginning about when the breaks was, and those things, inshallah, next time I'll keep in mind. So this is how the process goes. Okay. So this is called the classical Pendleton method. You start with your own version of what is positive. Others give the points of positive. You give your improvement points. Others give the improvement, and you sum it up. Okay. Clear so far? Okay. Yes.
Just one
Yeah.
from my own experience from the academic advising. I feel that 2 points you need to always keep in mind is that never destroy the self-esteem of the student.
Absolutely.
Always keep that in mind that your word is not hurting him in a way that will get him down. And second thing is that build the trust in the beginning, that he will trust you.
Right.
When he comes to you, he will share his actual problems. This is very critical. Otherwise, it will be very superficial.
Absolutely.
You will be able to solve it.
Absolutely. And there are a lot of cultural contexts also. Like one form of feedback may not really work in some cultures, it works in some cultures. So a lot of things you need to keep in mind. But your very important point which you said is, I agree, that self-esteem is important. If you destroy the self-esteem, feedback ends over, that really doesn't work anymore. Okay. Okay. So just to go through it once more. So start with the positive. Make the agenda clear about the feedback whenever possible. So you make sure that what you're going to be talking about in advance. Encourage self-assessment. So that's why we use the Pendleton's method. Always on the behavior, not on the person. Give examples of desirable behavior, constructive, applicable, use the I perspective. One very important thing is to keep it timely. So if you have a session today, give the feedback today. Don't give it 2 months later, because you will not remember what happened exactly. The student will not remember. It does not really help them. So always keep it timely and don't drag the past. And make sure that the person is ready to receive feedback, because if he or she is not in a really good mood to receive feedback, it will not work. So make sure that you talk to him well. Make sure that you gain his trust, like you said, and then you give the feedback. Okay. So I think we stop over here. And what time do you want to come back? If you want to come back. 12:15? Inshallah. Okay. Okay, so the last little bit is about reflection. So like we said, feedback works only when the student can actually reflect on it well. And the concept of reflection is, whenever you have an experience, you try to look back and you see what happened, why it happened. You try to analyze it, and you try to make a plan for the future. So your improvement plan. So you're looking back to see what happened. You try to analyze what happened, why it happened, and then you make a plan for the future. So this whole concept is what we call reflection. To say that he who knows others is wise, while he who knows himself is enlightened. So basically, unless you have self-awareness, good reflective abilities, any amount of feedback will not really help you. There is a concept called the Kolb's reflective cycle. It says that whenever adults learn, they go through 4 stages. So they have an experience, they reflect on that experience, based on that they make a future plan, and they apply that plan, they experiment with that. So this cycle is called the Kolb's cycle, and at each stage feedback helps you to improve the performance based on this cycle. So this concept is called the reflective cycle of Kolb. Now, in our place, we ask the students to reflect on most experiences. So on the small group sessions, on the whole year itself, and there are different ways of doing it. One way is what we call reflective assignments. We ask them to write an assignment based on their experience. Okay. Ideally, this reflective assignment has a format in the body which contains what went well, what went bad, why it went well or why it went bad, the analysis, and the future plan for improvement. We also encourage the students to give examples from their experience about what exactly went well or what exactly went not so well. And very importantly, the last part of that assignment is a clear, concrete plan for improvement. So this whole thing is what constitutes the reflective assignment. Now, I'll just show you some examples and you can grade those assignments. You can try to tell me what you feel is the quality of the reflection. The situation is that the student got feedback from the teacher that he was not confident in the group activity. So they're having group activities. One of the students is not very confident. So the teacher gave the student feedback that he is not confident. The student is asked to reflect on that feedback. Student number 1, this is his reflection. So he says, I don't agree with the teacher's comments. Actually, I think I did very well. I participate well. I don't have to improve anymore. What do you think? Is it good reflection? Good, bad, ugly? Yes.
Maybe it depends on the way how the teacher tells you
Here you go.
actually this maybe depend on how the teacher the feedback from teacher how it done for the students.
Agreed. So it depends on the feedback also. But what do you feel about the reflection itself? Does it look good, or is there some?
I think it's not good. Maybe opinion in the way how the teacher said for him.
Right. So students has a right depending upon the type the feedback was given. So one crucial part of the reflective process is that you need to have insight. You need to really look into yourself and try to find that, okay, is there a reason why this feedback was given? So even if you don't agree with it, it is fine. But you should try to analyze why it was given. So that is something which probably is missing out here. Okay. Second student, same situation. This is the feedback. So the reflection, sorry. So he says that I agree with the teacher's comments. I am nervous in group activities. Next time I will be more confident. Better or slightly better. So here you can see that there is some insight, and he tends to agree that okay, there is an issue. He also tries to find the issue. He says that he is nervous, that's why he is not really participating. And there is a positive tinge in the end. He says that I will be more confident in the future. But what is missing? There is no concrete plan. I mean, he says he will improve, but how? There's nothing written over there. So often these are all true reflections which we have got in our program. So one thing which we often find is that the students will say, okay, I agree with your feedback, next time I'll do better. But there is no clear plan on how he or she is going to do it. So the key thing to reflection is that you need to analyze the problem. You also need to give a plan for improvement. Okay. Same situation, student 3. So he says that I agree with most of the comments. I tend to keep quiet during discussions, and this is mainly because I am not confident of English language. I will try to practice my English by speaking in front of a mirror, and I'm sure I'll perform better next time. Better. So this is what we really expect in a reflection, that your analysis should be as detailed as possible, and more importantly, your plan should be concrete. So there should be a specific plan you're trying to do, and that should be feasible, practical. Okay. So this is an example of a relatively good reflection. Okay. Now we were talking about small group, but just briefly, can you also incorporate problem solving strategies in your lectures? Because this was one issue which a lot of people raised, that okay, in a small group it will work, but what about a large group? We have a lot of issues in large groups, so it may not really work. What do you think? Can you use some of these strategies in a larger group, or?
Actually, I didn't have a chance to teach a small group.
Okay.
I always use, I have a big group, and I just start to divide them into small groups.
Okay.
And just assign a leader for each of them.
So the large group itself is you divide into smaller groups, is that it?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. Thank you. Yes.
I think this depends on subject itself. Some subjects can be closed groups, some subjects
Okay.
Some on problem solving depend on the subject.
So it depends on the subject itself is what you feel. Okay. Any other opinion? Over here. Because this is one problem which is often coming up. We always say that small group is fine, we can do it, but what about a large group? Okay. The suggestion is that there are a lot of methods which come under the group of active learning methods. Okay. And like you have the think, pair and share, you have the buzz groups, snowballing, jigsaw and all those things. We will not go into the detail because that itself takes a lot of time, but the point is that you can use these methods to stimulate active learning even in a large group. Okay. So for example, the commonest thing which you do is the think, pair, share. So you divide the group in such that people sitting side by side are asked to discuss that topic and one of them presents it. Okay. Or you can do it as a larger group of 3 or 4 in a large group like Madam said. There are more complicated methods like the jigsaw method which you can try it out in larger groups. So it is possible, not as easy as in small groups, but it can be done. Okay. One method which especially I personally do a lot is concept maps. So there are 2 ways you can do it. One is, in the middle of the lecture or in the end of the lecture, you can draw a concept map of the whole content. Second method is what we call as fill in the blanks concept map. So what we do is that the whole concept of the lecture we put in, but we leave out some boxes and we ask the students to fill it. Okay. So the students sit in groups and try to fill it within the lecture. So those things help to stimulate active learning, problem solving. Not as easy as in small groups, but can be done. So these are some things which you can try out for large groups. And finally, just 5 minutes regarding the assessment part, which again some of you were asking. Your assessment needs to be valid and reliable. By valid, what we mean is that the assessment should be correct. You should be using the right assessment tool for the right objective. Okay. So here, for problem solving, do you think you can use an MCQ? Because that's probably the commonest thing which we use in our setting. So your whole objective is that students should be able to develop skills of problem solving. Okay? Can you use an MCQ to assess that? Anybody saying yes? Anybody saying no? Okay. Right. You want to add something?
Because sometimes they design the MCQs in such a way that they are putting the answers.
Right.
Person has to solve something, and they are putting the answer in such way that if a person is solving in a wrong way, will reach to one of the answers that
True.
given there. So it depends on how you are designing the
Right. Any other opinion? So theoretically what they say is that it can be done. But the problem is designing a problem solving level MCQ is not that easy, and it may not be possible in all specialties in the same way. We actually do it in medicine. We give larger scenarios, beginners which are more complicated. But again, there's a lot of guessing involved. So you never really know for sure whether the problem solving skill has been applied definitely or not. But theoretically, yes, if you make a high quality MCQ, you can assess problem solving skills. What else can you do to assess problem solving? Any other suggestions which you have? So your whole aim is how do you assess that the student actually can do problem solving? Any other methods, suggestions? You can do project-based assessments, hands-on assessment. And one thing which we do, of course, before that, there are 2 aspects to the problem-solving assessment. One is the assessment of the skills itself, and the second is the knowledge comprehension part. For the soft skills like participating in the group, leadership, and all those things, we usually assess during the session. So we have rubrics for that, where you just tick off and try to assess each student. It is not very easy because there's a lot of subjectivity involved, and time is usually short, but theoretically you can do that for the soft skills. For the knowledge comprehension application skills, I'll just give you 3 examples and just see which do you feel can be apt for problem solving. The previous case which we saw was psoriasis, the one rash on the leg. So one question is, describe the clinical features of psoriasis and explain the management. Is there problem solving skill involved in this. It's pure knowledge. Just recall, if they mug up the details, they can just reproduce it. So there is virtually no problem solving involved over here. What about this? Same case. So you have a patient with 35% of the body surface involved with psoriasis. How will you treat him? Again, it's recall. It looks like a bit more complicated thing, but practically it's again recall. So if they know the treatment of psoriasis, they know that this is for 35%, this is for 40%. They just write that down. Okay. What about this? So here probably he needs a bit of application. He needs to first make the diagnosis of psoriasis. He is not taught that in liver disease you have to do this, in this you have to do this. He has to think on his own. Okay. So there is some new out of the box thinking he has to do. And that's ideally the type of questions you need to give to assess problem solving. If you directly use the knowledge and apply it, it doesn't really count for problem solving. So it is just recall knowledge. So you need to do it slightly higher level, slightly different scenarios which they are not really used to, and they need to apply the skills in a slightly more creative or innovative manner. So these are different ways of assessing it. These are the things which we use in our place. So we have problem solving based questions, practical assignments. We have strict concordance tests. We have work-based assessments and 360-degree assignments. Okay, so now we go to the final hands-on session. We have almost an hour left. The plan is we will divide you into groups, okay, and you will actually do the process, and then we'll be giving feedback so that you get a feel of how it is done and where any further questions can be assessed at that time. We have a total of how many people? 7, 14. So I think 3 groups over here will be good. And how many people do we have here? Would it be okay to divide into 4 groups? You can just arrange the chairs so that it's in a rough circle. So we need a group of around 7 or 8 people in one group. 7 or 8, and ideally you need to be sitting in a circle, ideally. सर फैसिलिटेटर को कुछ बोलना नहीं है सर, आराम से बैठे क्या सर? वी हैव 5 ओवर हियर. आप जहाँ पे भी लोग कम है वहाँ पे आप ज्वाइन करें. So can I request you to join together so that it will be one group? Yeah. So maybe if you can just put the. Will be difficult?
Could you tell us what is the required?
Yeah.
But what are we going to do with it?
I'll tell you. So basically, you are the small group, right? I'll act as the facilitator. Okay. Now the first thing when we do in the small group is we choose a chairperson. We choose a leader of the group. One person takes care of the time, okay, and timekeeper, and one person is recording the things, what is being said. Okay. So he needs to, at the end of it, the secretary, and he or she needs to tell at the end what are the objectives you need to go back and refer. Okay. So the rest will be members. So the first thing I need you to do is choose a leader. Who? Yeah, it may be better because.
We do not have the learning objectives.
No, the learning objectives are only for you.
Okay, for me, so I will see that they are going to discuss all these things. Okay,
Exactly.
I have to facilitate.
Just let them free, but at any point you feel that it's going a bit, you direct them. That's okay.
What should we do?
Yeah, so what we said is that you imagine that this is the group, okay? In the PBL session, the first thing we do is we choose a leader of the session, a student. So one of you will be the leader, okay? One of you will be the timekeeper. We need to finish in around half an hour. And one of you will be the recorder. They will record the things so that at the end of it they know that what is clear, what is not clear, what needs to be referred, go home and referred again. Okay. So the end result is, at the end of the whole thing, in 5 minutes you have to summarize what your learning objectives are from the case, what you need to learn further. Okay. So first step is you need to choose a leader.
Okay, but the goal is to decide which camera we will take.
It's, yeah, that is left to the group, but then the facilitator has a clear objective. Okay, so you can discuss freely, but any point I feel that you are going away from the objective, I'll bring you back. Can I just keep the bag down? Okay. Okay. So leader. Who's the leader? Okay, good. Okay, and then you need to choose somebody to keep the time and somebody to record the thing. Yeah. Again, the idea is that that particular scenario is a trigger for learning something. Okay. What that something is, that objectives I know as a tutor. Okay. And we assume that the case is written in that you will also go towards the same objectives. But if at all I feel that you're diverting a bit, I will ask some questions to bring it back. Okay. The whole aim at the end of it is that you need to solve part of it, plus you need to say what you don't know. So what is the thing that you need to go back, refer to, and then come back, which are your learning objectives. Okay. So the end result will be, he will have a list of learning objectives which you need to go back and, okay, if I may just interrupt, what was the first step in the process before brainstorming? We said that classically the first step, exactly, and so first is probably clarifying the difficult terms. So ladies, yeah, we're just summing up, last slide, okay, just the last one, then you leave. So just to conclude, done? Okay. So the first thing we said is that problem-based learning and problem solving are not exactly the same thing, but they are closely related. So problem solving is an integral part of PBL. Okay. Whatever you do, you need some basic content knowledge. Without the content knowledge, none of this will work. So you need background knowledge, that is essential to the skill. Very important is whether it is problem-based learning or problem solving, the cases need to be real life-like. It needs to be contextual. Like for example, this problem which you had now was not really contextual. I mean, you really don't know where you're going to use it. So that makes it a bit difficult. When you know where you're going to use it, it really helps. So contextual, real life problems. The most important thing is practice. So if you want to move from a novice to an expert, you cannot do it without practice. So the more cases you do, the more cases you see, the more you become an expert. Small groups are probably the most effective way to teach problem solving, and some of the key skills which are required is brainstorming, Socratic questioning, reflection, feedback. We can put it into lectures also, but it is not as easy as doing it in a small group, but there are some techniques which you can try which will stimulate active learning and can improve problem solving skills. And finally, of course, nothing works without assessment. So you need to make sure that you have an assessment which is aligned to the problem solving. Only then you will be able to actually assess problem solving. So you need to make sure that your assessment is assessing what it is supposed to assess. That's it. Thank you. Yes.
Thank you very much
Thank you.
for the workshop. Thank you very much. But I have a question.
Yes, sir.
Problem-based learning is student-centered of teaching and learning program, right?
Right.
And so we came from different field and area where this kind of method of teaching, maybe it will be suitable for example, medicine and healthcare, and maybe also it's not suitable for other specialties.
Okay.
So we have seen today a lot of advantages of this method. Can you tell us what are the disadvantages of this method where we can balance between the right and wrong?
Okay. So like we said, there are a lot of issues with PBL. The most important being changing that culture. We all came from a background which is traditional learning. So it is very difficult for us to move into the student-centered method. It requires training, it requires logistic, it requires funding, you need rooms for small group activity. And the most important disadvantage is that this is assuming that the students are self-learners, which is not really true in most cases. Because, especially in our case in the first year, it is very difficult to get the students to learn on their own. And that's one of the limitations which we face. So that's probably the disadvantage. Yes, sir.
Also, I mean, you mentioned that your curriculum, you got it from Holland.
Netherlands, yeah.
I mean, we also need some this problem-based learning curriculum also to start with, is it right?
You can,
That will also take
yeah,
money, time, that kind of thing, because
true.
I think we cannot develop it by ourselves.
You can if you have a trained team, but then, each case takes months to write. So it's a lot of effort and it's not easy without a trained team. So it's easier to take it from somewhere, but that also has disadvantages because, there the cases are written in their cultural context. So applying it directly is not an easy thing. You need to adapt it a bit. So you have disadvantages also over there. Yes, sir.
We discussed about this, but what about the summative assessment of these groups? You do as a group or as individual? How it is done?
Both. So partly we have assessment for the generic skills. So we have rubrics for assessing the group dynamics, participation, presentation skills and all those things. That's one part. And then you have the actual summative assessment which deals with the knowledge and application. So you have higher level MCQs, problem solving questions. So both are there.
Those are individual based.
Those are individual based, yes.
And what is the ratio?
Right, it depends on block to block, but for most blocks is around 10 to 15 for the generic skills. Most of it is for the content part. Yes, sir. Okay. Any other comments before we leave? Done? So thank you so much. Thank you so much.